I never expected to feel so small surrounded by my own family. It was supposed to be a celebration, a gathering filled with laughter, but it turned out to be an arena where I would be publicly humiliated. As I stood in the grand living room of my parents' ostentatious mansion, decorated with extravagant chandeliers and golden accents, I sensed the familiar weight of judgment pressing down on me. The air was thick with the scent of affluence, but today it also carried an unsettling tension. My sister Madison glided into the room with the grace of a peacock, her designer dress shimmering under the extravagant lights. She was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. As she shared stories of her latest corporate triumphs, promotions, bonuses, networking with influential people, I felt every word cut deeper than the last. Madison radiated confidence, her smile infectious to everyone else but me. "Have you thought about finding a real job, one that doesn't involve your hobbies?" she quipped, her tone dripping with a mix of sarcasm and condescension. Laughter erupted from the guests gathered around, and I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks. It was a familiar jest, one I had endured countless times, but this time it stung sharper. I had poured my heart into my freelance work, pouring hours into honing my skills, pouring my passion into projects that brought me joy. But to them, I was merely the underachiever, the black sheep of the family. My parents exchanged glances, a silent agreement passing between them, and I could see that they silently approved of Madison's jab. They always did. I had watched them shower her with praise, a stark contrast to the dismissive comments they directed my way. "Why can't you be more like Madison?" they often asked. It was a mantra that echoed in the corners of my mind, a constant reminder that I was not enough. The anger bubbled within me, mingled with shame as I battled the urge to flee the room. Madison continued her monologue about her recent successes, glancing at me occasionally as if I were a mere backdrop to her life. "You wouldn't believe the bonuses I received this year. Maybe if you got a real job, you could afford to come to Europe with us next time," she said, her smile unwavering as she tossed her hair over her shoulder, the laughter of our relatives drowning out my silence. I felt like a ghost, invisible and irrelevant. The more she prattled on, the more acutely aware I became of my vulnerability. I could feel every eye on me, waiting for a reaction, and that made it worse. I wanted to scream, to lash out, but instead I stood frozen, trapped in a whirlwind of embarrassment and resentment. My heart raced as I struggled to push down the swirling feelings, afraid of showing any sign of weakness. If you've ever felt underestimated by family, you'll understand every part of what happened next, I thought bitterly, trying to summon the courage to speak up. But every time I opened my mouth, the words stuck in my throat, weighed down by years of being belittled. The evening progressed, but I could no longer focus on the conversations around me. Instead, I found solace in the corner of the room, where I could at least pretend to be absorbed in my phone. I scrolled mindlessly, looking for a distraction from the reality unfolding before me. I could see the lavish displays of wealth, the extravagant gifts exchanged among my family, the way they bragged about their latest investments and luxurious vacations. It was suffocating. I had always known we were wealthy, but it was moments like this that highlighted the stark contrast between my life and that of my sister. I couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy as I watched her command attention effortlessly. Madison had always been the favored child, but tonight her dominance felt amplified, further severing the already thin thread of connection I had with my family. As the night wore on, I felt trapped in this web of pretense, struggling to maintain a facade of happiness. My heart raced as I braced for more jabs disguised as innocent comments. I wanted to confront them about their favoritism, about how it felt to be constantly belittled. They controlled the narrative of our family, and I had begun to wonder if I had lost my voice entirely. Finally, as the clock ticked closer to midnight, I could feel my patience wearing thin. Madison had just finished recounting her latest business trip, complete with glamorous photos on her phone, images of her living the life I had always dreamed of while I was stuck here, in this gilded cage. I took a deep breath, feeling my fists clenching at my sides. "Madison, not everyone wants your life," I heard myself saying, my voice firm as I tried to quell the storm brewing within. The room fell silent, eyes turning towards me in surprise. It was the first time I had dared to address my sister directly, and for a split second I felt a thrill of empowerment wash over me. It was brief but exhilarating. But before I could defend myself further, our mother interjected. "Oh, sweetie, we just want you to succeed just like Madison," she said dismissively. My heart sank. It was all the validation Madison needed. Her triumphant grin returned, and I knew the moment was slipping away. "I don't need your approval," I muttered, shifting my gaze away from her piercing stare. But deep down, I craved it more than anything. At that moment, I felt like a caged animal desperate to escape, to prove that I was more than just a disappointment in their eyes. As the gathering came to an end, I made my way to the door, desperate to escape. The echoes of laughter lingered behind me, a painful reminder of the division that existed within our family. I'd always been the black sheep, the one who didn't fit the mold, but tonight, the feeling of inadequacy had never been more suffocating. And just as I was about to step outside into the cool night air, my phone buzzed. A text message that would change everything. The Pentagon had called. Minutes later, my world would be turned upside down, and I would realize that I was not the failure they always assumed me to be. Little did they know, the true measure of success was coming, and it wouldn't be Madison who defined it. As I stood in that corner, the laughter and conversation swirling around me like an impenetrable fog, I felt a flicker of something deep inside, a tiny ember of defiance that had long been buried beneath layers of shame and doubt. I glanced around the room, my gaze landing on the faces of my family, all of whom seemed to bask in the glow of their own success. Their animated discussions were filled with plans for lavish vacations and exclusive events, and I realized they were operating on a different wavelength, one where I didn't belong. Suddenly, my father's voice cut through the chatter, booming like a thunderclap. "We should all be setting examples for the younger generation. Madison, you're leading the way, and I'm so proud of you." His words were a declaration, a proclamation that solidified the notion that my sister was the embodiment of success, and I was merely the shadow lurking behind her. My heart sank, feeling the weight of his expectations press down on me like a suffocating blanket. I thought of my own pursuits, my passion for technology and innovation, the late nights spent tinkering in my makeshift home office, creating projects that merged art and science. I had never shared these dreams with my family. They would never understand. To them, my freelance work was a hobby, a pastime unworthy of serious consideration. But that evening, as I stood wrapped in my own thoughts, I felt an unfamiliar determination begin to stir. For the first time, I contemplated the possibility that my worth was not defined by my family's narrow view of success. There was power in my creativity, in my ability to innovate. Perhaps I could turn this ember into a flame. Madison, oblivious to my inner turmoil, continued to bask in the adoration of our relatives. "This year, I've been working on a project that could change the industry. If I land this deal, we'll be looking at a significant boost in profit," she boasted, flashing a bright smile that prompted more laughter and applause. My stomach twisted at her words, a mix of envy and resentment bubbling to the surface. How could she not see the impact her words had on me? That's when my mother chimed in, her voice dripping with feigned concern. "And what about you? Have you found something meaningful to do yet, dear?" The pointed question hung in the air, a spotlight illuminating my insecurities. I could practically hear the collective intake of breath from the guests, waiting for my response. I felt the heat rising in my cheeks, and in that moment I realized that I was tired of being the family disappointment, the underachiever. I had spent years trying to fit into a mold that didn't suit me, and the realization was liberating. I needed to stand up for myself, to reclaim my narrative. "Actually," I said, my voice steadying as I challenged the silence, "I've been working on something that truly excites me." The words felt foreign yet exhilarating as they rolled off my tongue. I could see the surprise in their eyes, a flicker of confusion as they processed my unexpected defiance. "What do you mean by that?" Madison asked, her smile faltering for a second. I took a deep breath, feeling a surge of courage. "I've been exploring technology and innovation. I've developed a few projects that I believe could really take off." The room fell silent, and I could sense the tension shift. My father raised an eyebrow, skepticism etched on his face. "Projects? What kind of projects?" His tone was laced with disbelief, as if he couldn't fathom that I could possibly create something of value. Rather than back down, I pressed on. "I've been working on an app that integrates AI with user-generated content to enhance creativity," I replied. "It's something I believe in, something I'm passionate about." The laughter of the party faded into the background as I spoke, and for the first time, I could see genuine curiosity flicker in the eyes of a few family members. But Madison quickly recovered, her competitive nature flaring. That sounds nice, but everyone knows those projects rarely lead to anything substantial. It's all just talk until you make it happen, she shot back, her tone dismissive. The frustration bubbled within me, but instead of lashing out, I leaned into my newfound resolve. Maybe they don't lead to anything for those who don't put in the effort, I retorted, my voice firm. But I'm not afraid to take risks and explore my passions. I'm done being underestimated. The air hung heavy with unspoken words. The guests exchanged glances, some taken aback by my outburst, while others seemed intrigued by my confidence. I could feel the tide beginning to shift, and the ember of defiance turned into a flicker of hope. In that moment, I realized I had the opportunity to redefine my narrative, not just for myself, but for my family, too. Their perception of success didn't have to dictate my path. I felt a surge of excitement at the thought of pursuing my hidden passions, of allowing my innovations to take flight. As the night wore on, I could see the subtle shift in dynamics. My family was beginning to see me not just as the black sheep, but as someone with potential. There was still an uphill battle ahead, but I could feel the first stirrings of change within me. No longer would I accept the role of the underestimated family member. As I glanced at Madison, who was still trying to assert her dominance, I felt a sense of determination solidifying in my chest. I would carve my own path, and I would do it on my terms. My journey was just beginning, and I was ready to embrace it fully. With that resolve ignited, I prepared to forge ahead, knowing that the confrontation with my family had only been the first step. I was ready to stand up for my ambitions, to unleash the hidden talents that had long been suppressed. Little did I know that the call from the Pentagon would soon change everything, leading me down a path I never expected, one that would test my newfound courage and force me to confront my family in ways I never imagined. As Madison's smile faltered and the room held its breath, I found myself standing at a precipice. The moment was charged with tension, my family's stunned silence a sharp contrast to the boisterous laughter that had filled the space just moments before. I felt the heat of their scrutiny, but this time, instead of crumbling under the weight of their expectations, I embraced the adrenaline coursing through my veins. "What do you mean by that?" Madison had asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. It was my opening, and I had to seize it. "I've been working on a project that could revolutionize how we interact with technology," I said, rising from the corner where I had felt so small. "It's an app that uses AI to enhance creativity by integrating user-generated content." My voice was steadier now, emboldened by the conviction that surged within me. "It's something I've poured my heart into for the past few months, and I believe it has real potential." The room was silent, a thick blanket of disbelief hanging in the air. A few of my relatives exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of confusion and surprise. I could see my father's skepticism deepening, his brow furrowing as he processed my words. "An app," he scoffed, the disbelief dripping from his voice. "What makes you think you can compete in a market filled with professionals? You're not even working in a proper office environment." "Because I believe in it," I countered, feeling the flame of my earlier determination ignite into something fiercer. "This isn't just a pastime for me. It's my passion, and I've been investing my time and energy to make it something worthwhile. Maybe if you all took the time to see what I've been working on, you'd understand." Madison, recovering from her initial shock, leaned forward, her interest piqued yet laced with that familiar competitive edge. "What kind of features does your app have?" She was clearly trying to regain control of the conversation, but I could sense a shift. This was no longer about her overtaking me, it was about me standing my ground. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of their expectations still pressing down on me, but now with a sense of purpose. "It allows users to collaborate on projects, share ideas, and receive AI-generated suggestions to expand on their creativity. It's not just another app, it's a community where innovation can flourish." My mother, caught in the crossfire of this unexpected confrontation, chimed in with a forced smile. "And how do you plan to get it out into the world?" Her tone was condescending, but I refused to let it shake me. "By reaching out to potential investors and launching a beta version soon," I replied confidently. "I've done my research and I'm building a network. This is happening whether you believe it or not." For the first time, I felt a hush of admiration from a few family members, but it was quickly drowned out by Madison. You really think you can just waltz into tech and make it big? It's not that simple, you need to take this seriously. Her words were sharp, a thinly veiled attack cloaked in concern. I am taking it seriously, I shot back, feeling emboldened. And maybe if you'd stop looking down on me, you'd see that I'm capable of innovating just as much as anyone else in this family. The tension in the room crackled like static electricity, and I could see my father's expression shift from skepticism to a simmering anger. You're wasting your time with these fantasies, he admonished, his voice low and dangerous. You should be focusing on a career that provides real security, not chasing shadows. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, the breath caught in my throat as I faced my father's disapproval head-on. What's so wrong about pursuing my passion? Just because it doesn't fit your idea of success doesn't mean it's not valid, I retorted, feeling the words spill forth with a fierceness I barely recognized. Madison crossed her arms, a challenge etched across her face. Is this really what you want to do with your life? Chase a fantasy instead of building something substantial. Taking a step closer, I locked eyes with her, determination solidifying in my chest. This isn't a fantasy, Madison. This is my life, and I refuse to let you or anyone else dictate what I should be doing. I'm tired of being sidelined or dismissed. I have something to offer, and I'm going to make it happen. The room was charged with an explosive tension, and for a moment I thought I might have crossed a line. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of my cousin, a quiet tech enthusiast who had always supported my endeavors in secret. He nodded slightly, a spark of encouragement that ignited a flicker of hope within me. Maybe we should give him a chance to prove himself, he said, breaking the silence that had enveloped the room. You never know what he could achieve if given the right support. His words echoed in my mind, and the notion of support from even one family member felt like a lifeline. If I had the courage to pursue my passion, perhaps I could inspire others to see my potential as well. Madison's expression soured, her competitive nature flaring even more. Fine, but don't expect us to applaud mediocrity, she snapped, though her voice lacked the usual bite. It was a sign of uncertainty, a crack in her facade. We'll see about that, I replied, my voice steady. I had a plan, one that I would not only keep hidden but also develop further. I was ready to take charge of my destiny, fueled by the fire ignited that evening. As the evening wore on, I felt a shift within me, a sense of empowerment that had eluded me for far too long. I was no longer the invisible presence lurking in the shadows of my family's grandeur. I was ready to forge my own path, to reclaim my narrative, and to show them that I was much more than a mere disappointment. The confrontation with my family had opened a door, and I was eager to step through it. My app was my ticket to freedom, a chance to redefine who I was and what I could achieve. Little did I know, this would be the catalyst for a series of events that would culminate in a revelation none of them could ever have imagined. As the night drew to a close, I couldn't shake the feeling that change was on the horizon. I would no longer accept their disrespect nor allow it to define my worth. I was ready to confront my family, to expose my hidden potential, and to take control of my life. And with that thought, I felt a sense of calm wash over me, knowing that I was finally ready to embrace the future I deserved. As I looked around the room, I could see the disbelief etched on my family's faces. Madison's competitive edge had given way to confusion, and for once she seemed uncertain of her place in this unfolding drama. The tension was palpable, a thick fog that wrapped around us as I prepared for the next step in my revelation. You all think I've been hiding in the shadows, right? I continued, my voice steady. But what you don't know is that I've been the one financing this family's lifestyle. I've been the silent benefactor, investing in your businesses, your vacations, and everything you've taken for granted. The room fell into a stunned silence. I could see their expressions shift from skepticism to shock, and it felt exhilarating. What do you mean? My father finally managed to say, his voice wavering. The confidence I felt surged within me. I've been funding the family business, making it more profitable than you realize, while you've dismissed my efforts as mere dreams. Madison's eyes darted around the room, searching for validation from the family members who had once looked down on me. You're lying, she whispered, her voice betraying the cracks in her composure. There's no way you could have done that. I smiled, enjoying the moment. Why don't you ask the accountant? You'll find out that I've been the one with the legal rights to the family business all along. The weight of my words hung in the air, and I could see the realization dawning on them. Just then, the door swung open and an unfamiliar figure stepped in, an official-looking man in a sharp suit, a briefcase in hand. "Excuse me," he said, his voice commanding attention. "Is this the residence of the Harrington family?" I watched as my family turned to face the newcomer, bewilderment etched on their faces. "Yes, it is," my father replied, confusion evident in his tone. "I'm here on behalf of the Pentagon," the man stated, and the room fell into a deeper silence. "We've been monitoring a project that has the potential to change the landscape of technology and creative collaboration. I believe you have a groundbreaking application in development." My heart raced as I realized he was referring to my app. "Yes, that would be me," I said, stepping forward. "I'm the one behind it." The man nodded unfazed. "We've been impressed with your concept and would like to discuss potential funding and partnership opportunities." Gasps erupted around the table, and I could see Madison's expression morph from disbelief to envy. The bewilderment on my family's faces was almost comical. "You're serious?" my mother stammered. "Absolutely," the man affirmed, pulling out a contract. "With the right support, this app could be a game changer not just for you but for countless others." Suddenly, the dynamic shifted dramatically. My father's skepticism evaporated, replaced by a desperate need to be part of this new narrative. "What do we need to do?" he asked, his voice suddenly eager. I felt a swell of power coursing through me. "First, you need to acknowledge my contributions," I stated firmly. "I've been the one supporting this family, and it's time you recognize my worth." Madison's face fell, her competitive spirit overshadowed by the reality of my success. "But you're just a kid," she said, her voice shaky. "How could you possibly know what you're doing?" I leaned in, my gaze unwavering. "Because I've been doing it. While you were busy flaunting your privileges, I was working hard to create something meaningful. And now, it's time for you to see that I'm not the underdog anymore." The air was thick with tension, but I could sense a shift in my family's perception. They were beginning to see me as a force to be reckoned with, a powerful figure who had risen from the shadows. I turned to the man from the Pentagon. "I'm ready to discuss the details," I said, reclaiming my narrative. As the conversation shifted to numbers and projections, I felt a sense of liberation wash over me. This was my moment, and I was finally being seen for who I truly was. My family, once the source of my shame, was now witnessing my transformation into someone who commanded respect. When the meeting concluded, I turned to my family, their expressions a mix of admiration and disbelief. "I hope this changes how you see me," I said, my voice steady. "I'm not just your little sibling anymore. I've built something from the ground up, and it's time for you all to recognize that." Madison, her competitive spirit now subdued, offered a half-hearted smile. "I guess I underestimated you," she admitted begrudgingly. "Underestimation has been the family specialty," I replied, my tone light but firm. "But that ends today. It's time for all of us to redefine what success means." In that moment, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had not only asserted my worth but had also paved the way for a new understanding within my family. This wasn't just about me anymore, it was about the lessons we would all learn moving forward. As the evening drew to a close, I felt gratitude swell within me. I had fought for my place in this family, and now I had earned it. I realized that true wealth wasn't just measured in money or status. It was about self-worth, respect, and the courage to stand up for oneself. If you've ever felt underestimated by your family, you'll understand every part of what happened next, I concluded, my heart full as I embraced this new chapter of my life. This was just the beginning, and I was ready to embrace it all.